Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. It's funny, I don't know why I look. I've been working for hours and hours, and I look outside to just make sure it's a sunny day that I'm looking at. Sunny days always put me in a good mood for the training we got before us. Thanks for those of you who mentioned my tooth. If you don't know this, I was doing training earlier this week, and I just had this bad toothache. So all better now. I'm feeling energetic. And I'm looking forward to talking about budgets today. Do me a favor in the chat, if you haven't done so already, let us know where you're coming from. Today, I'd just like to hear about what city and state you're coming from. It's a great way to build a network. As we move forward, everybody who's in the training today, and we've got over 200 and almost 250 people registered for today's training. We got almost 100 people already here live. And so this is your chance to network with those people as well as hear the training that I'll be doing. So go ahead and let people know where you're coming from, and I'm going to get started right into the training because I got a lot to talk about, and I know I always run out of time. But I got my water, and I'm ready to rock and roll on the FY2026 budget. Let me make sure everything's good to go. I think I'm good to go. So today I want to talk to you about the FY 2026 budget. I'm super excited about it because it is passed and it's a big deal, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But on July 4th, President Trump signed into law the budget that Congress passed, right? And independent of a couple of things, the one thing that's really clear when they pass the budget, that the government's going to keep on spending. I've been saying this for as long as I've been teaching government contracting, that it doesn't matter who's in office, they all like to spend. And as a business owner, that makes me feel good. As a taxpayer, maybe not so much, but as a business owner, I'm happy. And so the budget that got passed, I wanted to put the numbers down because some of us have been around for a while and we understand numbers at a pretty good level, and others sometimes a little less so. And I wanted to level set us all. And so first off, we'll hear numbers like the budget was passed for $7.3 trillion. And that sounds cool. That's a lot of money. I'd love to have one of those $1 trillion, right? But $7 trillion isn't really anything to do with government contracting. Not at all, right? That's the kind of money that gets spent everywhere, for example, on Social Security, right? That's all part of that $1 trillion. We hear about the interest that the country spends. That all fits into the $1 trillion number that you hear, $7.3 trillion budget that got passed. And then as you start coming down, there's something called discretionary spending. And I'm not trying to be a budget expert here. I'm trying to be a sales guy who teaches you how I look at the budget and where the numbers really matter to me. And so, if you come down after that big $7 trillion budget, you have discretionary spending. And what this really means, discretionary, is that federal agencies can spend this amount of money at their discretion. That's all that means. And that's a really important word to understand in the budgetary language that's out there, lexicon, is that $1.6 trillion was passed for discretionary spending. The president and the agencies asked for more. Congress passed a little less, but basically it came down to $1.6 trillion. And then today, by the way, I'm going to be using round numbers. Let's just assume it. When I say, a round number, it's round. And then coming down further, right, this is the part that really matters to us as government contractors. I call them small business eligible contract dollars or small business eligible dollars. I heard that a long time ago in my government contracting journey, and I really liked it because what it meant was that's how I can tell how much of that big, huge budget that's out there is actually contract dollars. And so $800 billion is a good round number. And I'm going to go into it in a couple of slides later, the past couple of years and then this fiscal year coming up and what those numbers look like. But $800 billion, that's the contract dollars that are out there. Huge portion of it, large businesses will go after. But personally, I think small businesses should be able to get at least 50% of that. And not by law, but just by the quality of our service to the federal agency that we serve. We should be able to get half the contract dollars. We're not going to be able to get a contract to build an airplane or a battleship or something, right? Leave that to the largest. So one of the things I wanted you to understand, though, is don't stop at $800 billion because this is where we sometimes distract ourselves. Remember, I said $1.6 trillion in discretionary spending. Well, if I did cybersecurity, I could look at the budget across the entire federal agency, federal government. And when I say the federal government, I'm really talking about the executive branch, so all the agencies we typically serve. But in there's about $28 billion in cybersecurity discretionary spending. And that's something that's really important for me. And it's something I want you to keep in mind is what do I sell? And then what's the discretionary budget around that? And then from that, what do I think the budget's going to be for contract dollars? And so for me, I think it's going to be about $12 billion in cybersecurity. By the way, I don't do cybersecurity. I'm just using that as an example because I've done all sorts of training for my customers and helped them understand where the cyber dollars are. But those two numbers, 28 billion and 12 billion, those are really important as we go forward in FY 2026. And I want you to remember it because $12 billion, the contract dollars that I'm estimating for cybersecurity, that's the world I get to play in. I'm like, all right, how can I get my 1 million or 5 million or $10 million in sales? Or like my friend who's got $1 billion sales goal, right? How do I get the piece that I need from those contract dollars? Those are opportunities I'm trying to chase. But discretionary spending is really important because when I follow the discretionary spending dollars, I'm able to find people and program offices and commands that are spending that money and have that priority, and I can go in and support them, and I can figure out how to engage. So anyways, just a quick way of looking at that. If this is what you're looking for from today's training, figuring out where the money is, just put budgets rock in the chat. Let's let everybody know that we're excited about talking about federal budgets. And you should be excited because the federal budget dollars is where the contracting dollars come from. And so, we can look at it in the news or we can look at it as government contractors. And for us, we want to look at those contract dollars. I'm super excited to go down that path today. I've got 24 minutes left. And so the way I'm going to break up this training today is into, first off, just why the budget is important. Why is this budget in particular more important, in my opinion, than other budgets in the past, and why it's important to you? So we're going to cover down on that. And then we're going to talk about the size of the budget. It's really important whenever you look at anything, you kind of compare it so that you've got a more realistic look at something. Thanks a lot for all those budget rocks in the chat. I appreciate that. And then last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some tips that I would follow, and I'm going to follow with my customers on steps you can take right now to be able to prepare yourself for Q1 2026. I know we're at the end of the year spending, but we're also at the beginning of the year. This is unprecedented in the last 30 years. I've been in government contracting for a long time. I know I look very youthful, but I've been at this game a long time, since 98, and you'll see me come back and talk about that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. If you don't know me, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market after I got out of the Army as a small business owner, like most of you. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we have repeatable, predictable results. This is what I want for you. This is why I come back day after day. And this is some of what I hope to teach you today, some of that process that makes it repeatable and predictable for your success. If you haven't done so already, follow me on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me, but generally the idea of a connection is if you're putting out a lot of content, then I would see it. Otherwise, if you just want to track on my content, just click follow as well. And make sure you're connected with others in the chat. Hey, Rangers lead the way all the way. I see somebody in there. I usually don't look at the chats, but when I see Rangers lead the way, I get distracted. If you haven't subscribed to my newsletter, subscribe to it. It's the Government Contracting Success Newsletter. It's the largest GovCon newsletter on LinkedIn by far, twice as big as any that are out there, including DOD's. And it's because all I provide is quality information on how you can succeed in the federal market. And the last thing is just a reminder, tomorrow's training is about, what is tomorrow's training? What I put is federal buyers are on the no-fly list. What I mean is that it's really hard for federal buyers to get approval to go to contract or conferences, et cetera. So how do you meet them? Tomorrow I'm going to be talking about that, because it's vital for us to be able to meet these people in order to have a relationship, in order to win contracts. That's tomorrow's training. Go ahead and sign up for that if you haven't done so already. Okay, if you haven't figured this out, I talk at a fire hose pace. Don't worry about it. You can always watch a replay at quarter speed or half speed and enjoy it. First thing I wanted to talk about is just, why is this budget so important? FY 2026's budget just got passed. And this is a big deal, right? It kind of got pushed really fast forward, and I don't care about the politics of it. But what I look at is this passed in July 4th, 2025, and the fiscal year for 2026 doesn't start until October. That is staggering for me how far away that has happened. The last time it happened was the last time it happened was 1997, where the budget was passed before the fiscal year started. That was staggering. And that literally was the year I got out of the Army and started in the government contracting space. And so for my entire career after that, it was continuing resolutions. And this is why this budget is kind of an exciting thing for me, is because I had to take a minute and realize this. I'm like, oh my God, there's not going to be any more continuing resolutions going into 2026, right? Continuing resolutions are where they pass temporary budgets until they get the full budget. Sometimes it like goes all the way to the end. And those of us who've been around, we know that pain. These CRs, as they're called, they typically freeze any kind of new contract. So if there's an existing contract, the funding stays at that level and it might still have the funding going forward. There's certainly little delays, but any new contracts, new initiatives, new programs, they get pushed off to the side. One of the other things, like if you recall, if you've been at this for a while, even if you haven't been in government contracting, but you've just been in the news, there's been constant talk of government shutdown year after year after year. And again, it doesn't matter which party's in Congress or the White House. It's the same thing for the last 20 plus years, is there was always threat of government contracting. And I was saying to myself, especially preparing this training, I get pretty excited here, is that there's not going to be any shutdown talk for the next 18 months or whatever it is. There's not going to be any shutdown talk. That is staggering. It enables us to be able to prepare for things that maybe we haven't been able to prepare for before. So if you feel what I'm saying, put death to the CR in the chat. Maybe death's too strong, but no more CRs in the chat. The other thing that really is an important thing about this budget and why you want to be tracking on it is what it does for federal buyers and federal agencies. Usually they're skittish. This is my word, right? But they're very hesitant to do anything when they don't know if the budget's going to pass, or you got these CRs going on. But because the budget is passed, now the agencies go, wow, the money we asked for has been approved. It's right there. And this is a really important thing because they can start planning from day one and executing from day one. Literally, we're in this end of the year spending, right? Fiscal year 2025, July, August, September is the end of the year fiscal year spending. And there's a lot of churning of the sea in there. We get excited about that kind of thing. But now it's going to continue right into October, November, December, which is huge because this fiscal year 2026 is not going to be pushed off till January and beyond. They'll start spending and thinking about what they want to get done right now. And this is very exciting for us government contractors. I also put here that we're not going to have this evasion of federal buyers. If you've been doing this a while, you know that sometimes we'll have relationships or try to reach out to buyers and they'll just disappear on us. They're like, oh, let's follow up in a few months. It's like, a few months? What are you talking about? We need to move faster. But with continuing resolutions and them not knowing what the budget's doing, then they're like, I'm not going to talk. I don't know where things are going. I'm not going to talk. But this, even for them, I think is going to take a little bit of time for them to go, holy smokes, we got the money we asked for. Let's get going. And so they're not going to disappear. They're going to want to engage with you, with industry, and to find out how you can help them as they start trying to achieve their mission. And the last thing is it eliminates budget uncertainties for obviously the federal buyer, like I was talking about, but also for us. We can look forward, and if we're trying to do hiring and predicting where our revenue might come from, the budget is not going to be this barrier to us anymore like it used to be in the past. So this is all very exciting for me and why I think the budget is important for us to be paying attention to. So briefly, I just wanted to talk about the size of the budget and to put it in perspective. I've said this many times. It's something my experience has taught me that it's a truism, is that it doesn't matter who's in office, they all like to spend, right? And the only difference is where they spend money. And this is really important, and I'll talk about it a little bit on in the next slide. But it's really important for us to understand that as you look at the last 2 years and then you look at the next fiscal year, the spending is happening, right? The total budget that I talked about that just got passed in 2026 is 7.3, but look how close it is to the previous years. Last year, or this current year, is $7 trillion. The year before that, it was almost $7 trillion, $6.5 trillion, $6.75 trillion. And that means that spending has been there. Now, that $1 trillion number we're talking about, That's the part the government's really trying to get down. Not the next number, though. The next number is discretionary spending. And basically, for the last, for the 3-year running, 24, 25, and 26, it's 1.6 trillion in discretionary spending. This is a huge deal, right? There'll be tweaks to how that spending is being done, what those numbers will end up on, but basically the money's stayed the same. President Trump actually asked for more money, I think, for 2026, and Congress basically brought it back down to 2025 numbers. The thing about this is, if you've been tracking this whole year since this administration has been in office, there has been all this cost cutting and efficiency and DOGE and all these things, and we're going to cut spending. And what happens in the next year's fiscal budget? It's the exact same as it was the last time for certainly for government contracting spending and for discretionary spending. Mike, I don't know where they're cutting the spending, but I'm not seeing it. As a taxpayer, I hate it. As a contractor, I love it, right? The money is there for me to predict my success. And the last thing is, you can look at the contract eligible dollars. This is really important because as you look at how much they've been spending, it basically is going to stay the same. 700 to 800 billion in 24, 7 to 800 billion is expected in 2025. In 2026, if it stays right on track, it's going to be right around $7.5 to $800 billion in contract dollars. Remember, those dollars aren't all yours, right? You then have to take that $800 billion and go, well, how much is being spent on janitorial services or on HR training, things like that, right? Cybersecurity, how much is overall being spent on that? Now, how much of that being spent on my area is going to be stuff that I can support? So that's part you have to dive into and figure it out. But one thing we can see for sure, 2026, the government is going to spend money. Now it's our job to figure out where does what we sell align to what they're spending. And do me a favor right now, tell me what you sell. I want to know this in the chat. Just put a statement like, I sell this, this, and this. Don't put a bunch of text. First off, if you do, I'm not going to read it at all, and no one will because it's too big and it'll go by. But if it's small, then we can see it really quick. And I'm trying to look here as I wait for a second. Well, first off, Beth, I appreciate it shouting out that you're willing to connect. But here's somebody specializing in working with healthcare entities, whatever that is. Put something down and let us all know what you sell. This is the place for you to get good at it so federal buyers can really help you. Hey, before I go on to the next slide, I just wanted to thank our sponsors. I've been doing this for 8 years, and I really appreciate these daily sponsors or these sponsors who are helping me with the daily lives. First, Graham Inc. They've been with us for a long, long time. They do staffing and most importantly, American Sign Language support services. And so if you know of people needing their help, let them know. KZO, Kate was on yesterday from KZO Consulting. They do pricing and contract compliance support. And she and I did a live session yesterday. So if you didn't watch it, watch it. She gave lots of tips on what to do before the award and after the award to avoid risks and issues. Proposal GPT, I appreciate them being a sponsor of the live and of the conference I plan on doing out there. And so for them, they've got a line here, proposals done in minutes, not hours. And they just passed a lot of milestones that are really important. But one of the things I liked, and I don't know if they're still doing it, hopefully they will, but I know if you go on their LinkedIn site, they were offering first proposal for free. I always hate it when I have to do a demo or something. Here, I could just do a proposal with them, and I love that. And then the last one is LinkedIn for GovCon. That actually is a company run by my sister, Cecilia, who I'm sure is in here somewhere. She has been supporting us since 2018, and this year she had broke off on her own to really drive forward supporting government contractors, being visible to federal buyers and engaging federal buyers using LinkedIn. So connect with these sponsors. At the very least, just say thank you to them because they help bring this training to you. Okay, so let's talk about the last slide here that I got. I wanted to give you some steps, and I could give you 1,000 steps, right, on how to move forward with reaching out to federal buyers and understanding how you can have success in the first quarter of 2026. I just picked a few of these here, but the first one I want to start with is reviewing agency congressional justifications. One of the things that I've realized that is hard sometimes for people to do, but if you can do this, you will separate yourself from the people who can't have success, from your competitors, etc. reading, right? So every single agency had to create a congressional budget justification to send to Congress as Congress was trying to figure out what money to appropriate or to set aside for government spending, et cetera. Every agency. So if you look at United States Border Patrol, or if you look at FEMA or the Army or whoever it is, it doesn't matter. They all had to create a justification for their budget to send to Congress. And so there's all sorts of documentation that they have. When you go into this documentation, you're able to see who got the money. So when you think about the budget that just got passed, you're talking about hundreds of pages. But if you take the time to read it, especially if you're looking to make $1 million or 10 million or 100 million from the government, take the time to read their documents. They will tell you who got the money, right? Which offices within that agency got the money, which programs. And so if you don't know this, there might be an office like Office ABC or something. But then there's all these different programs, and you should know what these programs are. I just did a LinkedIn post today, for example, with Border Patrol. And inside there, just because I was sharing it with you, I was able to understand their portfolio of programs, these major programs that support their mission and the vision that they have. And so I can look into the budget and see which ones of those got funding, which ones of those have higher priority. And there's ways you can get in there and look at that information. For example, if you go through the budget and you search, one of my favorite things to search for is decrease and increase, just the word decrease and increase. Because I can look in at a program office. If I think about Department of Commerce has bureaus. And if I go in there, there's a bureau. I already forgot its name because I'm live and it's out of my mind, but it doesn't matter. There's this bureau that does a lot of economic analysis, right? And it's looking at a lot of data. Well, I can look in and go, oh, they've had a cut in their budget, right? They've reduced the number of employees, or vice versa, right? I can see that FY2026 are bringing on 20% more people. Certainly in Border Patrol and DHS, things like that, you're going to see that massive increase. But when I see the increase, I see chances of opportunities I might be able to support. And when I see decreases, I begin to wonder, well, is there really room for me if you're going into the next year cutting your budget? I don't need to fight an uphill battle. I'd rather go somewhere where the money already is, and you're just looking for industry partners to help engage in spending that money. But this is a really important thing that you can see in there. And I mentioned this already. Some of these documents are 300, 800 pages. I've read documents well over 1,000 pages on, when the agency is really large. And it's amazing what you can learn. It's just staggering what you could learn. And if you figure out how to use ChatGPT as an example to drop a document in and start asking it questions, that could be helpful. There's 1,000 RFI or AI companies out there that'll help you do that. For me personally, I like reading because I feel like AI is still missing things. But whatever you do, go figure out where those documents are so that you can dive into it. So the first tip, look at the budget documentation in an agency that you want to go after. Congressional justifications is where they're explaining what they want to do with the money in 2026. Second thing you want to do to prepare for 2026 first quarter, right? To be able to go, how can I start getting in there? You want to reignite your relationships. We have all sorts of networking relationships. We have some strategic relationships that have kind of gone down, right? We have people that maybe we're close to, but they just haven't talked to us in 6-9 months. It doesn't mean anything except for they've been nervous with the administration changing over and with DOGE and all these things. But with this budget coming, the uncertainty has left a lot of these people. And so you can reignite these relationships. If you've had contracts in the past, or contracts maybe even in the last 6 months that have had to go away, or they were going to be awarded and then they weren't, any of that kind of activity, go back, talk to them, say, hey, the budget's passed. How does this impact your spending? How does this impact this work we are doing? Another way that you can look at reigniting relationships is go back to any RFI or RFP, sources sought, that you have responded to. And maybe it's just been a while and you haven't heard anything. Get back there, talk to them and say, where are you on this RFP? I know it kept getting pushed for award. Maybe it was because it was one of those new program starts, or RFIs. Sometimes those RFIs go into a black hole. Just reach into the black hole with your great power and pull it back out and say, hey, what's going on with this? I know you got money. Is this still there? Can we talk to the program office? Understand those priorities. And then I gave you a last tip here on the relationship side is look at the forecast. Generally, I'm a little skittish myself on agency forecast where they have a point of contact on there because sometimes they're not the right person. But who cares? If I'm looking at an agency, I'm going to go look at their forecast, and then I'm going to go in and call those people who are on that list and say, hey, this opportunity totally aligns with us. How does the budget impact this? Is the spending approved for this? Is this money set aside for this opportunity? These are just 3 simple ways of reigniting relationships. But you want to do that. If you reignite your relationships in the next few months, especially as it's, you're working FY2025, you'll be ready going into 2026 on October 1, not January 1, right? That's really important. And the last thing, and I might have said this as my first bullet, but pick one department. Unless you're doing 20 million plus, pick one department: HHS, DHS, VA, Army. Pick one and go get your revenue in there. If you're bigger than 20 million, then you can handle it. Or if you've got 2 people, they can handle it. But when you pick one department, you really feed off of every meeting you have, leads to another meeting, leads to another introduction. And I really want you to do that going forward. So if that makes sense, put relationships rock in the chat. It's really important for us to warm up those relationships going into 2026. All right, here's what I want you to remember from today's training. And I know it was fast, and it is just the beginning. I actually plan on coming through and doing training where I show you how I break down a budget, like how I go in and find spending. And I'll pick something like cybersecurity and show you how I find the money, the people, the offices to go talk to and to try to get some traction. But here's what I want you to remember from today's training. First off, let agencies know you can support. So now is not the time to be quiet. Now's the time to go knocking on doors and reach out to 100 people at an agency that you're trying to get into. And when they don't respond, reach out 5 more times, 10 more times. Don't give up. They're just busy, but they want to hear from you that you can support their mission. By the way, if you're not big enough, if you're just getting started, don't reach out to the agency. Reach out to small businesses under 20, 30 million and talk to them. Team up. Bring your expertise to their expertise as a prime, and you'll start having a lot of success. And the third bullet here is make the time. Make the time to review the budget. I mean, literally block 2 days off and say, hey, I'm not having any meetings. You can do it 2 weeks from now, right? So you have no meetings, and set the expectation. Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm sitting down and I'm going to review the Army's budget. I'm going to review FEMA's budget, word for word coming down, and I'm going to create a plan from that. If you do that, you will be going into FY 2026 with so much more of a strategy than just playing it as a reactive mode in there. So hopefully you found that helpful. By the way, I'm finishing up a stealth launch, and I'm launching this week a new product, and I'm looking for a couple of early customers who will come in. And this product is about building relationships and maintaining relationships that lead to follow-on meetings and lead to the introductions and the information you want. Whoever comes on in this early stage, I'll give them 90% off for life of this product. I just want to be able to get feedback. I think it's really good, but it's really important to get that feedback from users. So if you're interested in that, put beta in the chat. I know those of you who did it on Monday, I got you down, and I'll reach back out. But this is a really exciting product for me to be launching. And so if you're interested in supporting that or being part of that, let me know. Don't forget about tomorrow's training. It's about, again, relationships. How do you build relationships when many federal buyers aren't coming to conferences anymore? Well, how can you go in? I'll talk about exactly how to go knock on doors and get in. All right, I know we talked at a fire hose pace, or maybe you listened at that pace and I just talked at that pace. But just remember, as you go into the day and into FY 2026, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I will see you in the next training.